This series is based on a true story. Falster Island, 2012. An elderly man, Arnie Herskov, lives with his dog and abuses alcohol. Suddenly Arnie feels dizzy and collapses. His brother Kenny, who had parked nearby, hears the dog barking and enters the house, where he finds Arnie on the floor. Arnie is rushed to the hospital. He hears the voice of a nurse reassuring him that everything will be fine. Arnie's loved ones gather in the hospital room. His unhealthy lifestyle had nearly led to a heart attack. His condition is now stabilized, but doctors insist he remain in the hospital for a few days for observation. As soon as the medical staff and everyone else leave the room, Kenny offers Arnie a beer. Arnie gladly accepts it. At night, while he is dozing, someone enters his room and injects something into his fore. Soon after, Arnie suffers cardiac arrest. Despite the medical staff's efforts, he cannot be resuscitated. It's 2014. Pernille Kursman Larsen is waiting for her ex-husband Morten to bring their 7-year-old daughter back, and soon they arrive. Despite the divorce, the former spouses have maintained a good relationship for the sake of their child. But that's not the only change. Tomorrow is Pernille's first day working as a certified nurse. Morten supports his ex-wife, understanding how nervous she is. It's a new chapter in life for both of them. Recently Pernille moved together with her daughter Alberte, and the girl is worried that she won't be able to make new friends in their new place. Pernille reassures her daughter, promising that everything will be fine. Alberte doesn't understand why her parents can't be together anymore. Pernille explains that she and Morten don't work well as a couple but get along as friends. Sometimes that happens between adults. The next morning, Pernille takes her daughter to school. It's the first day for both of them. Pernille meets another mom, Karen Mulla, who turns out to be an old acquaintance of Morten. Karen wishes Pernille good luck at the hospital. Pernille is set to work in the emergency department. The head nurse, Linda, introduces Pernille to her duties and shows her the medication storage room. Only nurses have access. Doctors are not allowed in. Pernille is surprised to learn that the hospital does not keep track of medications. Linda says they tried, but gave up the system due to complications. Pernille meets her colleagues. Suddenly one of the patients goes into cardiac arrest. All medical staff receive a signal on their personal pagers. Pernille observes as her colleagues attempt to resuscitate a patient named Alma. The process is led by Christina Astrup Hansen, and Pernille notes her professionalism. Fortunately, Alma's heartbeat and breathing are restored. Christina is assigned as Pernille's mentor. The two women get along right away. Beyond work, they're also connected by being single mothers. Christina's daughter, Nuna, is 8, just a bit older than Alberte. Christina frankly tells Pernille that most of the doctors in the hospital are incompetent, so the nurses often have to solve problems on their own. Everyone says that Christina is the best nurse in the emergency department. The team welcomes Pernille warmly. She is determined to prove that she is a top-class nurse. Pernille has a night shift ahead, but she needs someone to take Alberte to school in the morning. Morten says he'll handle everything with no problem. Late in the evening, Pernille arrives at work and meets Niels Lundin, the chief physician and a fan of jokes. Among other things, he is also the best doctor in the emergency department. Only Pernille and Christina are on duty for the night shift. Not being used to the schedule, Pernille feels drowsy, and nothing urgent is happening yet. To wake herself up, Pernille decides to walk through the rooms to check that everything is in order. At first everything goes smoothly, but then a patient in room 37 suffers cardiac arrest. Remaining calm, Christina immediately begins resuscitation and shows Pernille how to properly perform chest compressions. Thanks to the coordinated work of the nurses, the patient holds on until the doctors arrive, who stabilize his condition. A doctor thanks the women for their diligent work. They essentially saved the patient's life. Pernille experiences this feeling for the first time, and it's close to euphoria. It's incredible, realizing that you've saved someone's life. Pernille's life is coming together. She has her daughter, a beloved job and plans for the future. The events take us back to the year 2012. A doctor explains to Kenny that Arnie passed away from an overdose of 2 medications. Since the doctors had not prescribed these drugs to Arnie, there is only one explanation: he took them himself with the intention of ending his life. But Kenny absolutely refuses to believe that. After the death of his son Jimmy, Arnie had been depressed, but recently he had been coping well. In 2014, Pernille and Christina are out at a nightclub with their colleagues. Pernille has integrated well into the team, and she has formed a particularly close friendship with Christina. However, when Christina starts dancing with one of the guys, Pernille feels like a third wheel and heads over to the bar. Niels approaches her, and the two of them strike up a conversation. Christina tells Pernille she's planning to leave with the guy. Barely holding back a wave of nausea, Pernille runs to the restroom. Clearly she's had too much to drink. The patients are very fond of Pernille, who treats every one of them with special care. After her shift, she runs into Niels in the parking lot. He asks her out on a date for the next day. Pernille happily agrees. It's her first time saying yes since the divorce. The following day, they go on a boat trip. Pernille asks Niels why he stayed at this hospital, which is considered the worst in Denmark. Niels says it's because of his ex-wife and son. He wants to stay close to them. And besides, if all the doctors leave, who will take care of the people who need help? Pernille becomes a model nurse. For her, this isn't just a job, it's a calling. But during another night shift, a young patient named Jenny goes into cardiac arrest. The medical staff are baffled. Just an hour ago, the girl was perfectly fine. Pernille's hands are shaking. She drops ampules and a syringe. 26 minutes of resuscitation yield no results, and the doctors are forced to pronounce the death. Pernille is deeply shaken. It's the first time she has lost a patient. Christina and the other nurses, on the other hand, take it in stride. For them, it's part of the daily routine. Pernille begins to doubt whether she can keep working in the ER. Jenny was so young, her whole life should have been ahead of her. Pernille starts to consider becoming a regular ward nurse. Christina agrees that working in the ER means constant stress and sleep deprivation, but at least during their shifts, the people who come in still have a chance. Unfortunately, doctors and nurses aren't gods. They can't always save their patients. Christina believes that Pernille is meant for this job. She knows what she's doing and doesn't let panic take over. The euphoria of saving lives is like nothing else. These words convince Pernille to stay in the ER. She enters Jenny's room and gently strokes her shoulder as a way of saying goodbye. But then Pernille notices a syringe and an empty ampule of a preparation Jenny was never supposed to receive lying in the trash can. In 2012, Arnie's funeral takes place. No one, including Kenny, believes that Arnie intentionally harmed himself. The doctor's explanation sounds absurd. They believe Arnie stole the drugs and returned to his room unnoticed. It's 2015. On the way to work, Pernille picks up Christina. She still hasn't gotten over losing a patient. Christina advises her not to take it so personally. But the strange occurrences continue. Pernille once again notices a shortage of that very same preparation. That same day, Niels asks her out on a second date, which lifts her spirits. Later, Pernille helps Christina insert a catheter for an elderly patient named Jens. Everyone on the medical team can see how close the two women have become, and one of the nurses warns Pernille to be careful with Christina. She's the kind of person who constantly seeks attention and isn't always reliable. At the end of the shift, Pernille sees Christina coming out of Jens's room. Pernille then picks up her daughter from school and surprises her with a trip to a horseback riding club. Alberte has dreamed of this for a long time, though she's very afraid. Pernille tells her that if you overcome a fear once, it stops being so scary. That evening, Morten visits his daughter and ex-wife again. Pernille realizes she made the right choice by moving here. This way Alberte gets to spend time with her father and feel like she's part of a whole family. When Pernille stops by Christina's place, she notices lots of medical books and certificates from professional development courses. She wonders why, with all these skills, Christina never wanted to become a doctor. Christina explains that she loves her job. The patients need their care. Christina's sister, Cecilie, passed away of leukemia 2 years ago, and that had a huge impact on her as well. She cared for Cecilie until the very end, but she couldn't be saved. The cancer was too aggressive. Many of the nurses dislike Christina because she has a reputation for flirting with every man she meets. In a conversation with Pernille, one of the nurses mentions that Christina once had a brief fling with Niels London. Pernille is very upset. She's not the only one who has noticed that ampules of medication have been disappearing from time to time. That same night, Jens goes into cardiac arrest. Pernille hits the emergency button, and Christina immediately rushes in, furiously performing chest compressions. It almost seems like Christina is enjoying the process. Fortunately, Jens' heart starts beating again. The doctor thanks Christina for a great job and tells Pernille how lucky she is to have such a mentor. But Pernille is already having doubts, feeling like something isn't right. That evening, meeting with Niels, Pernille asks him if he knows Christina well. Niels replies that Christina handles emergencies better than anyone, but denies ever having an affair with her, saying it's just gossip. Pernille shares her concern with Niels about Christina, who behaves as if she enjoys when patients are on the verge of death. Niels reassures Pernille, saying that Christina is just very emotional. Linda is outraged at how carelessly some of the staff waste medications. Today Christina is late for work, claiming she was in a minor accident on the way. Seeing how upset Christina is, Pernille hugs her. Later in the parking lot, Pernille notices that Christina's car is completely undamaged. Did Christina lie just to get attention? Pernille goes to Katja, her colleague, because she doesn't know who else to talk to about Christina. The girls go for a walk in the park, and Pernille talks about how often Christina lies. Katja is not surprised. Christina loves drama. But that's not the only thing bothering Pernille. Lately she's been noticing some medications going missing, though she isn't sure if Christina has anything to do with it. Katya has noticed it too, and the girls agree to keep an eye on what's going on at the hospital. Pernille starts avoiding Christina and even asks Linda for permission to switch shifts with someone so she wouldn't have to work night shifts. Linda advises Pernille to be careful with her words, since Christina is one of the best nurses. Nevertheless, Linda promises Pernille to find another partner for Christina soon. Soon Pernille's schedule is changed, and she is completely fine with it. At work, she doesn't miss a chance to be alone with Niels. Life goes on. An elderly patient, John Delger, is getting better. He and his wife Ella have been happily married for 50 years, and they've just had a great-granddaughter. Pernille promises John that he'll be discharged tomorrow and will get to see his great-granddaughter. Before the night shift, Christina tells Pernille that she'll take care of the patients. But the next morning Pernille finds out that 3 patients died during the night, including John, sudden cardiac arrest. Pernille is puzzled why John had cardiac arrest, since he was admitted for kidney problems. Her suspicions are growing stronger. The hardest part is telling John's family about his death. Ella doesn't understand how this could happen. John never had any heart problems. So Ella doesn't believe the staff's explanation. Pernille doesn't believe it either. What also seems suspicious is that all patient deaths occur during Christina's shifts. Pernille tells Katya directly that Christina is deliberately ending patients' lives. But Katya just can't process that. Like Pernille, Christina is divorced and shares custody of her daughter with her ex-husband. He considers Christina a bad mother, saying he'd be happy if anyone else but her were Nana's mom. Of course it hurts Christina to hear that. Pernille tries once again to persuade Katya to go with her to hospital management and tell them about their suspicions. But to Katya, it sounds too crazy, that someone from the staff is intentionally harming patients. No one will believe them. Katya leaves, and Pernille is left alone in this situation. Police officers arrive at the hospital. John's family found his death suspicious and demanded an investigation. Christina tells the officers that sudden cardiac arrest is not uncommon in the ER. Things are always happening here. From now on, Pernille can't think about anything else, and Morten notices something's wrong. Pernille tells him about the string of strange patient deaths, but Morten is convinced his ex-wife is overreacting. This is a hospital, and these things are normal. In any case, it would be difficult for Pernille to get another nursing job in this town. Torn by doubt, Pernille takes no action for now, but one day, taking advantage of Linda's absence, she accesses her computer and prints out John Delger's medical history. Christina senses that Pernille has grown colder. That evening, Niels suggests to Pernille that they tell everyone at the hospital they're a couple. Niels is tired of hiding. But Pernille doesn't care about that right now. Gathering her courage, she tells Niels that Christina might have poisoned several dozen patients. As proof, Pernille shows Niels John's medical records, which indicate all his vitals had been stable. However, Niels predictably calls it complete nonsense. According to him, Christina is the best nurse in the emergency department and has saved countless lives. And Niels has no reason to doubt her competence. Pernille continues to insist, and Niels leaves, slamming the door. He's convinced that Pernille made it all up out of jealousy. However, after calming down a bit, Niels begins to doubt himself. It's his day off, but he stops by the hospital to take a closer look at John's medical history. Pernille is haunted by nightmares. She feels responsible for the lives of the patients, but what can she do if no one believes her? Pernille meets with Ida, a former hospital employee. Pernille just wants to know whether she's losing her mind. Ida says that Christina may seem energetic and professional at first, but once you get to know her, you begin to notice some frightening oddities. At one point Ida also tried talking to the head nurse, but it didn't lead to anything. Shortly after, Ida was forced to resign. Pernille asks Ida why she even decided to talk to the head nurse in the first place. Ida explains that in 2012, a patient named Arnie Herskov passed away in the hospital under strange circumstances. In the past, Kenny had urged the hospital administration to reopen the investigation into Arnie's death. However, Kenny wasn't able to achieve anything and was forced to give up. His brother's death hit him hard. Kenny burned all of Arnie's things to numb the emotional pain. In the present, Niels consults a colleague from the cardiology department, who agrees that John's cardiac arrest looks suspicious. This prompts Niels to look into the records of other patients who died under similar circumstances. Later, Niels comes to Pernille and says that he believes her. Without solid proof, there's nothing they can do, so before going to the police, they need something more than just their own suspicions. And the fact that mortality rates at the hospital dropped sharply whenever Christina was on vacation clearly cannot be a coincidence. Pernille still can't understand the motive. Why is Christina doing this? Niels suggests that Christina induces cardiac arrests not to get rid of the patients, but to revive them and appear to her colleagues as the most qualified specialist. Since the hospital doesn't track medication use, the only way to expose Christina is to catch her red-handed. To that end, Pernille decides to work the night shift again. Christina says she's glad, they haven't been on the same shift in ages. Christina had even started to think that Pernille was avoiding her. Alberte wakes up crying from a nightmare and asks her mother if monsters exist. Of course Pernille won't tell her little daughter that monsters are very real and hide among ordinary people. From then on, Pernille discreetly watches Christina, counts medications, checks the trash and more. To gather evidence, Pernille photographs everything. An elderly patient named Vigo, recently admitted, has been battling bladder cancer for a long time. Pernille realizes that Vigo might be Christina's next victim. Pernille notices the strange way Christina looks at her. Does she suspect something? Or is Pernille just imagining it? In any case, she has no intention of backing down. Soon Vigo's heart rate begins to slow. Pernille rushes to the patient and realizes that Christina may have already introduced something into his fore. In a hurry, Pernille swaps the catheter and runs into Christina in the hallway. It takes all her strength to stay calm. Then she calls Niels and says she sees the fourth, which might contain the very preparation. But it won't be enough for the police, they need proof that Christina was the one who administered it. When Pernille returns to Vigo's room, he is no longer breathing, the preparation must have taken effect. The medical staff pronounces the patient dead. But it doesn't end there, another patient, an elderly woman, passed away. There was no resuscitation attempt, which meant that Christina hadn't done it to heroically save the patients. Clearly her madness had spiraled out of control. Suddenly yet another patient, admitted just 15 minutes earlier, goes into cardiac arrest. The medical staff begins resuscitation, but it yields no results. Christina openly laments what a difficult shift it has been. The other colleagues admire her resilience. Pernille still can't find the used syringes. Christina asks Pernille to help prepare the deceased patient for their family's arrival. Pernille struggles to keep her composure while listening to Christina's musings about the hardships of their job. A patient named Karina arrives with severe abdominal pain. Pernille knows she cannot allow Christina to harm anyone else. But the next one isn't Karina, it's an elderly woman named Maggie. She is experiencing severe dizziness and chest pains. While Christina is arguing with another nurse, Marina, who insists there's nothing in Maggie's medical file about heart issues and that her symptoms look suspicious, Pernille finally finds an empty syringe in the trash and hides it. Fortunately, Maggie's heart rhythm is restored. Suddenly Pernille notices that someone has disabled the alert system, meaning that if any patient gets worse, the alarm won't go off. Entering Maggie's room, Pernille sees Christina injecting something into the sleeping elderly woman. Caught off guard, Christina claims she was just adjusting something, holding several empty syringes in her hand. As expected, within minutes Maggie's condition rapidly deteriorates. Christina leads the resuscitation efforts, but this time it turns out to be a brain hemorrhage, not cardiac arrest, so it's unclear why the alarm was triggered. Pernille calls Niels and says she caught Christina red-handed. Apparently Christina panicked and activated the alarm herself. Then Pernille tells the on-duty doctor that Maggie's condition might have been caused by a preparation that hadn't been prescribed. At first the doctor is skeptical, but after reviewing the CT scan results, he orders the staff to immediately administer an antidote to that preparation. And Maggie does regain consciousness, her vitals stabilize. It's a huge relief for Pernille. Christina is still trying to pretend she had nothing to do with it. But Pernille isn't buying it anymore. Later, Pernille approaches Katja and says she was right. Katja silently hugs her colleague. Pernille and Niels waste no time calling the police, and soon an investigation is underway. Pernille tells the detectives everything she has uncovered. Christina is immediately arrested, although she continues to deny everything. Pernille feels that she has fulfilled her duty. The case sparks massive public outcry, becoming the biggest scandal in healthcare history. It's 2016. Christina's trial is approaching, and Pernille together with her husband Niels will testify. Pernille, by the way, is pregnant. Many colleagues have stopped speaking to her, considering her a snitch. But Pernille doesn't care about others' opinions, saving lives is what matters most to her. Her next patient turns out to be Kenny. He knows it was her who put an end to the string of deaths, and he thanks her from the bottom of his heart. Then a voiceover explains that based on Pernille's testimony, Christina was sentenced to life in prison, but the verdict was later reduced to 12 years because it couldn't be proven that Christina's actions alone had caused the patient's deaths. Pernille still works as a nurse at that same hospital.